The day kicked off just like any other Tuesday. Sun streaming through the blinds, coffee brewing in the kitchen, and there was Erica, my wife, acting a bit jittery. She was fiddling with her phone, her thumbs dancing over the screen faster than a pianist in a concert. I, Danny, strolled in, humming some tune from the radio, and bam! She hit her phone quicker than a cat spotting a cucumber. Odd, right? I didn't dwell on it much then. Chalked it up to her being her usual secretive self. But then she hits me with this story: her mom's sick, apparently. Needs to visit her, pronto. I'm not heartless, you know? Despite the little phone incident, I felt for her. Her mom's a sweet lady, makes the best pecan pie in the county. So, there I was, trying to be the good guy. I remember reaching into the closet, pulling out this sleek Zara bag I had snagged during a sale. Thought it'd cheer her up. Here, I said, handing it over. Something to make your day better. But Erica, oh boy, she looked at that bag like I'd handed her a box of expired chocolates. This? Danny, this is too cheap, she scoffed. Her nose scrunched up like she'd smelled something foul. I won't lie, that stung. I'm not Mr. Moneybags, but I try, you know? I brushed it off, though. Kept the smile plastered on my face. All right, if you don't like it, no biggie, I said, taking the bag back. Inside, my heart sank a bit, but hey, that's marriage for you, ups and downs. She left in a hurry after that, barely a goodbye. And there I was, standing in our little living room that suddenly felt too big, holding a rejected Zara bag. The morning sun didn't seem that bright anymore. I shook it off, went about my day. Work was the usual, numbers, meetings, coffee that tasted like burnt toast. But Erica's phone thing, it nagged at me, like a splinter you can't get out. Why hide it, why the rush? I kept turning it over in my mind, like a detective mulling over clues. But life's not a detective novel, is it? Sometimes a hidden phone is just a hidden phone. Or so I thought. That evening, the house felt empty. Erica didn't come back from her mom's. I tried calling, but it went straight to voicemail. Hey, it's me, just checking in, hope your mom's okay, I said to the beep, feeling like a guy talking to a brick wall. I ended up microwaving some leftovers, plopping down in front of the TV. Some sitcom was on, but the laughs didn't reach me. My mind was stuck on that morning, the hidden phone, the rejected gift, Erica's rushed exit. Little did I know, that was just the beginning. The first piece in a puzzle that was about to turn my world upside down. But hey, that's a story for another chapter. For now, it was just me, a cold plate of spaghetti, and a whole lot of questions. So, let me paint the picture for you. It's evening, right? I'm back from a day of what felt like endless spreadsheets and mind-numbing meetings. I'm thinking maybe Erica's back, maybe we'll have a decent chat, you know? But man, was I in for a ride. The moment I step in, it's like I walked into a storm. Erica's there in the kitchen, arms crossed, looking like she's ready to go 10 rounds in the ring. And then she starts, it's like a dam bursting. All about how I promised her the moon and the stars, a better life, the whole shebang. But here we are, same old, same old. Her words, man, they cut deep. She's going on and on about how I'm stuck in a rut, how I'm not living up to the big dreams I sold her when we first met. You said things would change, Danny, she says, her voice dripping with disappointment. But look at us, nothing's different. I'm there, standing with my coat still on, feeling smaller by the second. It's tough, you know? Hearing your own wife doubting if you'll ever amount to anything. It's like every, not yet, and, soon, I've ever said has been piling up, and now the pile's toppling over. I try to get a word in, maybe calm the waters. Erica. I'm trying, you know I am, I say. But it's like talking to a brick wall. She's got this look in her eyes, this mix of anger and, I dunno, disappointment? And then, she hits me with the kicker. I'm tired of waiting, Danny. Tired of empty promises. Her voice is cold, like a winter chill. I want more, and I don't know if you can give it to me. That stung. Felt like someone had socked me in the gut. I'm standing there, words stuck in my throat, watching the woman I love question our entire life together. It was one of those moments, you know? Where everything you thought was solid starts to crumble. The rest of the night was this awkward dance. We're in the same room, but miles apart. Dinner was a silent affair, the clinking of cutlery the only sound. I wanted to say something, anything, to bridge the gap. But what do you say when it feels like your whole world's been flipped upside down? I hit the sack early, pretending I was tired. But truth be told, I just wanted to escape, even if it was just into sleep. Lying there, staring at the ceiling, Erica's words kept replaying in my head. Doubt, frustration, disappointment, and nasty cocktail to gulp down. Little did I know, this was just the tip of the iceberg. The first cracks in a dam about to burst. But there I was, clueless, hoping maybe sleep would wash it all away. Spoiler alert. It didn't. Alright, so buckle up, 'cause this is where things take a wild turn. It's a few days after that clash with Erica, and I'm still reeling, right? Then I stumble upon this bombshell: Erica's got a secret. And not the good kind. I'm at home, doing my usual after-work routine, changing into something comfy, thinking about what to scrounge up for dinner. That's when I find this fancy-looking business card on the floor. It's got this name, Reggie, in flashy letters, and some website I've never heard of. Looks high-end, the kind of card you'd expect from a guy who wears suits worth more than my car. Curiosity gets the better of me. I hop on my laptop and check out this website. And there it is, in all its gaudy glory, a sugar daddy site. My heart's doing this weird drum solo in my chest as I piece things together. Erica's been meeting this Reggie guy, some loaded dude who's probably got more money in his wallet than I make in a month. Later that night, Erica waltzes in, all smiles and giggles. She's carrying shopping bags that scream, expensive. I can't help it, I ask her about it. And she spills, like it's no big deal. Oh, Reggie got them for me, she says, her eyes shining. He knows how to treat a lady. Not like our bargain bin lifestyle. Man, it felt like a slap to the face. She's going on about how Reggie showers her with gifts, takes her to fancy places, the whole 9 yards. Stuff I could never afford on my salary. I'm standing there, trying to process this, while she's comparing me to Mr. Moneybags. It was surreal, My wife, talking up another guy, flaunting his wealth like it's some kind of scorecard. Each word she said was like a punch to my ego. I'm trying to stay calm, but inside, I'm a mess. How did we get to this point? When did our life turn into some twisted soap opera? I remember lying in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, thoughts racing. Erica's asleep next to me, but it's like she's a million miles away. I'm trying to figure out what to do, how to feel. Angry, betrayed, sad, it's like a tornado of emotions, and I'm smack in the middle of it. This whole Reggie thing, it's more than just about money or gifts. It's like a mirror, showing me how far apart Erica and I have drifted. And the worst part? I didn't see it coming. I thought we were doing okay, but apparently, I was living in a dream world. So there I was, lost in thoughts, in a bed that suddenly felt too big. Erica's words about Reggie echoing in my head, a reminder of a reality I wasn't prepared to face. But hey, that's life, right? Full of surprises, some good, some like a punch in the gut. Before we dive into the next chapter of this roller coaster story, I've got a small favor to ask. If you're enjoying this tale of love, adventure, and unexpected twists, how about showing some love? Hit that like button to let me know you're on board. It's a simple click for you, but it means the world to me. It's like a virtual high five, telling me to keep the stories coming. And hey, why stop there? Go ahead and hit subscribe too. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming up next. Okay, so this is where things get a bit wild. Remember Reggie, the sugar daddy extraordinaire? Turns out, the guy's not some random rich dude. He's actually my buddy, part of a crazy scheme I cooked up. Yeah, you heard that right. Danny's got a sneaky side, too. Let me take you back a bit. A couple of weeks before all this drama unfolded, I stumbled upon some texts on Erica's phone. Not your everyday, hey, how's it going? Kinda texts, but the kind that makes your stomach do backflips. Flirty stuff, And they weren't from me. That hit me hard, like really hard, I didn't want to believe it. Erica and me, we've had our ups and downs, but this? It felt like a whole different ballgame. I needed answers, but confronting her head on? That was risky. She'd just deny everything, probably. So, enter Reggie. The guy's been my friend since high school. We've been through all sorts of stuff together. Failed exams, bad dates, you name it. I tell him about the texts, my suspicions, and before I know it, we're hatching this plan straight out of a spy movie. The idea was simple. Reggie pretends to be this wealthy guy from a sugar daddy site, woos Erica, and we see how far she'd go. He was perfect for the role, guy's got this charm and swagger that could sell ice to Eskimos. Plus, he's a pretty good actor. Won the lead role in our high school play once, remember that like it was yesterday. I won't lie, it felt weird. Setting up my own wife? But the doubt was eating me up inside. I had to know if Erica was really stepping out on me. So, Reggie sets up his profile, throws in some photos of him looking all dapper and rich, and bingo, he's in the game. And Erica fell for it. Hook, line, and sinker. She starts meeting Reggie, thinking he's this big shot who can give her the high life. Meanwhile, I'm getting the play-by-play from Reggie. Every lavish gift, every fancy dinner, he tells me everything. Sitting there, hearing about my wife going out with another man, even if it was my friend, it was tough. Like swallowing a bitter pill. Every detail Reggie shared was a jab to my heart, but I had to keep up the act, had to know how deep the rabbit hole went. Those were some long nights, let me tell you. Lying in bed next to Erica, knowing she's living this double life. It was surreal, like watching a movie where you know something the main character doesn't. Except, I was the main character, and the movie was my life going off script. But there it was, the truth laid bare. Erica, caught up in Reggie's web, blind to the fact that it was all a setup. And me? I was the guy behind the curtain, pulling the strings, hoping that somehow, this would all make sense in the end. But life's not a movie, is it? There's no guarantee of a happy ending. Alright, so here we are at the big showdown, the moment of truth. My heart's pounding like a drum in a rock concert, you know? I've got this whole script planned out in my head, ready to confront Erica with everything I know. I remember it was a Thursday evening. Erica walks in, all casual like, no idea the storm that's about to hit. I'm there in the living room, the TV's on, but I might as well have been on a different planet. My mind's racing, thinking about how to start this whole confrontation thing. So, I just blurted out. Erica, we need to talk. Classic line, right? Her face changes, like she knows something's up. But she plays it cool, sits down, and hits me with a casual, "What's up, Danny?" Then I lay it all out. The texts I saw, Reggie, the sugar daddy website, everything. I'm watching her face for any sign of guilt or shock, but guess what? Nothing. She's as cool as a cucumber. And then she hits me with it, the blame game. Danny, if you made more money, maybe I wouldn't have looked elsewhere. Just like that, no remorse, no apologies. As if it's my fault she's stepping out. Man, that stung, felt like a punch in the gut. But I had an ace up my sleeve. I tell her about my recent promotion at work, the big raise that came with it. I'm talking serious dough, the kind that could change our lives. Her reaction, her eyes light up, like she's just won the lottery. Really, Danny? That's amazing, she says, all excited. But to me, it's too little, too late. It was clear as day, her regret wasn't about the cheating, it was about missing out on the cash. The room felt smaller then, the air thicker. I'm standing there, realization dawning on me. This wasn't about love or our marriage. For Erica, it was all about the money. I tried to keep my cool, but inside, I was a whirlwind of emotions. Angry, hurt, betrayed, you name it. This was the woman I married, the one I thought I'd spend my life with. And here she was, more interested in my wallet than our relationship. It was a harsh truth to swallow. The woman I loved, the one I shared my dreams in bed with, was a stranger. A stranger who cared more about dollar signs than the vows we took. So, there we were, in the middle of our living room, the truth hanging between us like a thick fog. And me? I felt like a guy who'd just woken up from a dream, only to find out the nightmare was real. The confrontation ended with more questions than answers. Erica, with her newfound interest in my finances, and me, realizing that maybe this marriage was built on sand. It was a tough pill to swallow, a reality check I never saw coming. Here's where the roller coaster hits the peak, folks. After that showdown with Erica, my mind's made up. It's like a switch flipped inside me. I can't be with someone who's all about the cash, who sees love as a transaction. It's not me, never has been. So, I'm standing there, heart pounding, and I say it. Erica, it's over. I can't do this anymore. My voice is steady, but inside, I'm a mess. It's one thing to think about ending your marriage, it's a whole other ballgame to actually say it out loud. She looks at me, her face a mix of shock and disbelief. You're joking, right, Danny? She says, laughing it off. But I'm dead serious. No, Erica, I'm not. Us. It's not working. I tell her about the new place I've got lined up. A small apartment, nothing fancy, but it's mine. A fresh start, a place to rebuild from all this mess. She's still not buying it, thinks I'm bluffing. You wouldn't leave me, she says, a hint of panic creeping into her voice. But here's the thing, I'm done playing games. Done with the lies, the deceit, the whole charade. I need to be true to myself, and that means walking away from a relationship that's turned toxic. Erica's face changes then, it's like the reality of it all finally hits her. She starts bargaining, pleading. We can work this out, Danny. Think about all the good times. But it's like she's talking about a different marriage. The one I remember's been marred by lies and betrayal. I'm packing my stuff, and it's surreal. Each shirt, each book, each random knick-knack, they're all pieces of a life I'm leaving behind. Erica's watching me, and I can see the wheels turning in her head. She's realizing this is really happening. It's a weird feeling, you know? Walking away from the life you've built with someone. There's this mix of freedom and loss, excitement and sadness. But deep down, I know it's the right move. I can't be with someone who doesn't value me for me, who sees my worth only in dollar signs. The apartment's small, but it's a breath of fresh air. No more tiptoeing around, no more secrets and lies. Just me, my thoughts, and a chance to start over. The first night there, I'm sitting on a second-hand couch, pizza box on the coffee table, and I realize. This is it, the first day of the rest of my life. It's scary and exhilarating all at once. Leaving Erica, starting anew, it's a leap into the unknown. But sometimes, you've got to close one door to open another. So, there I am, in my new place, a mix of emotions swirling inside me. But one thing's clear, I'm moving forward, on my own terms. It's a revelation, a turning point. And I'm ready for whatever comes next. So, we're nearing the end of this crazy ride, and let me tell you, it doesn't get any less wild. There I was, settling into my new pad, boxes still half unpacked, when who shows up? Erica, and she's not the confident, money-focused woman I'd seen lately. No, she's a mess, tears streaming down her face, voice shaky. It's like a complete 180. She's standing there in my new living room, which still smells like fresh paint and hope, and she's pleading. Danny, please, I made a mistake. I didn't realize what I had until I lost it. Her words are pouring out like water from a broken dam. All apologies, promises to change, the works. But here's the thing, it felt off. You know when you're watching a movie, and the actor's performance just isn't hitting the mark? That's how it felt, like she was playing the part of the remorseful wife, but I wasn't buying a ticket to that show. I'm standing there, leaning against my new, not-so-stylish kitchen counter, just listening to her. Part of me, that old part that loved her, wanted to believe it. Wanted to think that maybe, just maybe, we could fix this train wreck. But then, the new me, the me that's been through the emotional ringer, he's shaking his head. He knows better. Erica, I finally say, cutting through her river of words. It's not about giving you another chance. It's about being true to myself. And the truth is, I can't trust you anymore. My voice is calm, but firm. It's like I'm hearing myself from outside my body, and I sound like a guy who's finally got his act together. She stops then, her sobbing pauses, and she looks at me. Really looks at me, maybe for the first time in a long time. And I see it, the realization in her eyes. She sees that I'm not the same Danny who'd bend over backward to make her happy, regardless of how she treated me. The air in the room shifts. It's heavy, filled with all the things we never said, all the things we hid from each other. And in that moment, I knew. I knew that walking away was the right choice. She stayed for a bit, trying to salvage what was left of our marriage. But it was like trying to glue back a shattered vase. Even if you put it back together, the cracks will always show. And our marriage? It was cracked beyond repair. Eventually, she left, the door closing softly behind her. And there I was, alone in my half-empty apartment, surrounded by the echoes of our last conversation. It was sad, sure, but it was also freeing. Like I'd just shed a weight I'd been carrying for too long. That night, I sat on my balcony, looking up at the stars, a cold beer in my hand. And I felt at peace. The kind of peace you feel when you've made a tough decision, but you know it was the right one. Erica's desperate plea, it was a closing chapter. A necessary end to a story that had run its course. And me? I was ready to start right. This story is called P.I. Exposes Cheating Wife. I am a 50-year-old businessman that owns and operates a retail business in my hometown. Except for the 4 years in the U.S. Marines, I have never left this area. My last year in the Marine Corps, I met and married Paula. After my discharge, Paula moved with me back to my hometown. I then started working for the man that taught me this business, and about 15 years later, sold it to me. The first few years, Paula was also working at a local bank as a bank teller. Even though I had 2 large loans, both of us did okay. We were paying for our home, and I alone was paying off the loan I used to buy the business. During the years, Paula and I were married. She gave us 2 beautiful children. I really came to love Paula. She was a fantastic cook, and even though she worked 40 hours a week, always kept the house clean, and my dinner was always on the table. After my daughter was about 10 years old, Paula started having some medical issues, and had to have a hysterectomy. For some reason, this caused Paula to go into a deep depression. As I look back at that time, I can see Paula was never the same after that. Paula also started to get angry a lot. She would jump on my son and daughter for nothing. I was at work when my son, then 13, called me. He stopped by a friend's house for about 30 minutes one day, and his sister got worried about him. So, she called her mother, then Paula jumped on my son later, after she got home from the bank. I am an avid outdoorsman. I love to hunt and fish. I also love to flip tin, looking for small things like lizards and snakes. One day, I got a bit careless, and a large copperhead was about a foot from where my hand was, and he bit me on my finger. I was close to my car, and the man that was with me drove me to the hospital. It was determined that I received either a dry bite, or a very small dose of venom was injected. I was given some medication and told to watch my finger for swelling. This happened on a Sunday afternoon. I was not able to locate Paula. When I told her what happened later, she exploded. I was just numb, and decided to drive about 15 miles to the interstate, where some nice hotels were, and checked in. The next day, I checked out and went directly to work. When I got there, my son called, and said Paula had left just after I did, and had not come back home. He and my daughter were still at home. Because it was a Monday, my kids did not have the money to pay for their meal cards at school. I went directly home, got both my kids, and took care of the money. By this time, I was no longer numb, I was pissed. I drove to the bank and discovered Paula was not at work. I had to go back to my business, because it was Monday, and there were some things that had to be done my 2 employees could not do. So, I went on about my day, and after a while, pushed Paula out of my mind. I closed my business and headed home. I did not see Paula's car in the driveway, but the kids were at home. Then finally at about 8 p.m., Paula drove up. She spoke to the kids and headed toward our home office, and I just slammed the door in her face. To her credit, Paula knew I was not in a good state of mind. I had already fed the kids and myself, so Paula made a sandwich and went to our bedroom. I slept in the guest bedroom, and that next morning, I noticed Paula was giving me wide space. Never once did she say I am sorry. My kids to this day tell me she did not apologize to them either. Then one day, about a week later, Paula suggested we separate and wanted me to move out. I told her I was not moving out, and that if anyone moved, it would be her. That was the day I drove into Richmond, Virginia, and found the family law attorney. She listened to my story and gave me some advice. First was to record everything while you are alone with her. Then speak to the kids and make sure they are not being traumatized. She also told me that she had a high suspicion Paula was cheating on me. Then she said she had a private investigator who was a retired federal agent and was very good at his job. She told me what her firm's billing rates were, and I was okay with it. Then she told me the private investigator will call me at my workplace, and he is going to need some information about my wife. I met with him and had the information the attorney said he would need. By this time, Paula did start staying with a friend from work, but made it clear that was her house and that she was going to hire an attorney to get me out of it. So, for the next 3 weeks, I woke up every morning, wondering if that night would be my last night in the house. I got up, fed my kids, and got them off to school. Then one day, my attorney called me and said the private investigator had found what we needed, and she wanted me to come by her office. So, we made an appointment for 2 days later. As luck would have it, I was served divorce papers. So, I took the papers to the attorney and she laughed a bit and said, "My wife has a huge surprise coming. I see the photos the private investigator took of Paula with her AP. To this day, I have no idea what he did for a living or where he worked. I just knew his name was Kurt. There were photos of him and Paula walking into hotels. Somehow, this private investigator even got a copy of the hotel registration where they registered as a married couple. To this day, I have no idea how they pulled that one off because most hotels I know demand ID from all guests. So, Paula's attorney asked for and got an emergency hearing to have me forcefully removed from the house. This was before Paula or the attorney knew what my attorney had. That private investigator had gone to the kids' school and spoke to their teachers as well as the kids themselves. My attorney also had all the photos too. My attorney asked Paula's attorney for a short private chat about 15 minutes before our case was called. When they walked out of that room, Paula's attorney did not look happy and she told Paula they needed to talk as soon as possible because she did not want to go into court today. After they spoke, all the smirk was gone from Paula's face. She went from boss to beggar in a matter of a minute, asked me for a chance to get back together. The attorney said she wanted to stop the case from going forward, but my attorney said, no, she would object to any motions before the court to do it. She assured the other attorney that a divorce was happening. So, the hearing came and Paula's attorney said a resolution had been worked out and the judge said, okay, talk to me about this resolution. I was sitting about 2 feet from my attorney and could hear her very lightly humming the funeral march as her hand covered her mouth. Paula's attorney said that new information has come in that renders the request moot. Here is what my attorney said happened. This judge was known as a judge that will hang a man by his privates and divorces. This judge would have loved to force me out of my home. So, the judge wanted to know what that information was and if they were going to ask for a dismissal of the case. As Paula's attorney was talking to her, my attorney stood up and said several sentences in Latin and the judge said, okay, and told both of us that his clerk will let the attorneys know when the final hearing will be. When I got home, Paula was already there. She was on her knees begging me to forgive her and let's go to marriage counseling for the sake of the kids. I refused, also told her to get the hell out of my house, that I would burn it to the ground before her cheating ass would ever stay there again. We later learned the date of the hearing. However, my attorney had to file for and was granted an order for Paula to stay out of my home and business. One thing about my attorney, she knows her stuff and does due diligence when she asks for a court order. This judge granted it because Paula ignored the summons to court. Paula during the hearing was only asking for a chance to be a wife again. She stated she had broken it off with her AP and just wanted to have her family back again. When the time came for my attorney to present her case, the first person called was the private investigator. She asked him where he was the night before this hearing. He said, observing my wife with the same man she had been seeing. This private investigator, when he takes a photo, always lays the day's newspaper in the photo. He had a photo of them kissing with the Richmond paper from the day before in clear sight. The judge told Paula he was granting the divorce on grounds of her adultery and was awarding her nothing. The kids had already told the judge who they wanted to live with. I had to settle with Paula for her part of the house. I also got a few bucks for child support that I honestly just gave to the kids. My world today is my business and my kids. I do have a wonderful girlfriend. Paula finally moved back to her hometown in California. I allowed the kids to fly out there to see her during the summer and on either Christmas or Thanksgiving. Today they are grown. I honestly don't know what happened to Paula that made her blow up our marriage. Last year, my daughter did one of those DNA things and through it determined she was in fact mine. My kids live in the same hometown I have lived in all my life. I asked both if they held any hostility toward me for not taking their mom back. My son said he did at first, but now knows I did what was best for all three of us. My wife, 30, comes from a humble background. Her father is an alcoholic, so her mother worked hard all her life to make ends meet. I, 30, am from a more privileged background. All in family are PhDs. We were different, but when we met in 19, I was in love. She was my first serious relationship. For the first 6 years, we had a long-distance relationship as I was studying abroad. I moved back and we moved in together. 4 years later, we tied the knot. After about 1 year of marriage, I found out she had been having an affair with her boss at a major marketing firm with a senior partner. I also found out that before the marriage, she had a one-night stand with someone and she also met him for some dates. She also maybe got pregnant and asked this one-night stand for some cash. She says she had an affair with her boss because she enjoyed the perks and was getting on the fast track for promotion. He gave her expensive gifts, attention, and time. This started around our wedding, where the pressure of our wedding costs was weighing on her as I was basically taking care of it all. She says she tried to end things, but he threatened to fire her and also beat her. Then said he would commit suicide. The physical violence was frequent with her boss. Her boss came to our home often and comes to many of our social engagements. She always told me that her boss doesn't have friends and she was just getting some brownie points. I bought this. I am such a fool. I even suggested to her to go with her boss to a business meeting outside the city because he is a terrible driver and could do with some company. What's crazy about this is that I am actually way richer than her boss. I have given her every single ounce of freedom. She can take money. No questions asked. She is not enjoying work. She can work at our business. Although I always encouraged her to be independent. I had actually helped her get this job. I paid for her college and basically all her expenses since the start. Best part, I encouraged her to go and talk to management as it would help her. She went and said hi to this guy because of that. She meant everything to me. She says she was happy in our marriage. I certainly was. My faith in her was so enormous that I ignored every sign. Our sex life was great. She says she never did this for sex. I have lost my future. I worked my ass off to grow our business after the COVID impact and here she was accepting luxury gifts that I consider pocket change. Although I'm a simple man, I rarely spend on myself and I spend time on clean water projects in Africa, but it's true. I didn't buy things for her mostly because I thought she can buy whatever she wants with her card. And also because I was working all the time. Also her fling mentioned above from a prior marriage. She texted him recently and had been having many flirtatious messages. She used to cook for her boss. She messaged him things like she wanted to be with him at night. And she did message him once or twice expressing concerns that she thought he was leaving her. After D-Day, our worlds have collapsed. She has quit her job and says she has become suicidal. She swears she tried to get out, but couldn't. And she hates this guy. She is asking for forgiveness. If I can take her back, I can't trust her or maybe anyone ever again. Update 1 D-Day. She came home after one of her office parties. She was completely drunk at 3 in the morning. She started mumbling. She wanted kids. I asked her who dropped her off. It was her boss. Something snapped in me and checked her phone, found out her workplace. This company she works for is awful. I just Googled and found out that I'm 2018. They laid off all senior management due to workplace harassment. And then someone in 2022 filed a case saying no action on her complaint. AP, he is in his mid-50s and fat, quite an ugly dude. Honestly, she has brought him to our house many times. She has taken me to his house many times. She has introduced him to all our friends. She always said it was because he is lonely and doesn't have friends. The extent of his visits were so much that even when I thought something was fishy, I would think who could be that stupid. My father just told me after D-Day that he had told my mother that I was probably approving of this open marriage. He just couldn't believe it that I didn't suspect anything. Her response after D-Day: accepted divorce, accepted to file lawsuit for workplace harassment. Quit her job, though she needs money, and is suicidal to a point that her family doesn't even let her use the bathroom with the door closed. She is remorseful and her family is too. She apologizes to me on an hourly basis, asks for forgiveness and a chance to prove she can change. She is asking me what she can do to make up for this. However, due to the magnitude of her betrayal, I am not considering any form of reconciliation, but it's hard on me to stay firm. Clues: during the 1-year-long affair, I have to admit she has asked for psychiatric help and has told me she has severe depression. I never understood the gravity of this and procrastinated on it. She has Googled on topics of how to end things. She has asked me multiple times to help her find a job. Again, I never understood the severity, so she definitely was going through something, but at the same time, she has sent texts to him like she is missing him. It's not that she had an escape in her AP. She was having a full-blown toxic relationship parallel to ours. Parallel lives. If you read her messages to him and then to me, you will see night and day with him. It's like a stupid teenager fighting and passionate and crazy with me. It's like calm, happy, and a loving wife. I am telling you, we had a happy marriage. This is what makes this so devastating. At one point, she is messaging him frantically to come pick her up. And she is messaging me at the same time, reminding me of some chores and that we have still not formally applied for a marriage license. In my opinion, and I am not a therapist, he just needs to cut his losses. If this man doesn't have any children with this woman, he needs to get out and fast. What additional signs do you need that this woman is a complete disaster? She had a one-night stand and continued to go out with her one-night stand and possibly gotten pregnant. And now she is messing around with her boss. Man, come on. Women like this are a complete waste of time and your. The moment I clicked play on the CCTV footage, my life flipped from mundane to a full-blown crisis. I installed those cameras because of the break-ins down the street, never imagining they'd unveil a break-in of a different kind, a betrayal. Julia had been working late a lot, or so she said. Community events, extra shifts at the library, her reasons were endless. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? But then, her phone started acting like a top-secret document, always on silent, always just out of reach. That nagging doubt started to eat at me, whispering louder each day, something's off. That evening, the alert pinged on my phone. Motion detected in your living room. Expecting to see a stray cat we'd been feeding, what I saw instead gutted me. There was Julia, my Julia, laughing and leaning into a kiss with someone who definitely wasn't me. His name, I'd later learn, was Thomas. The scene, seared into my memory, replayed on multiple nights' footage. I felt like I was suffocating, my heart squeezed by a vice of betrayal. But I needed undeniable proof, something concrete. Digging through her purse felt like the ultimate betrayal on my part, yet the receipts for dinners, the little gifts, the hotel bookings screamed the truth I couldn't deny any longer. The confrontation was inevitable. Julia, we need to talk, I said, my voice a mix of rage and heartbreak as I confronted her with the evidence. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted, crumbled before me, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry, Mike. It was a mistake, it meant nothing, I swear. Her pleas for forgiveness, her admissions of a mistake, they clashed with the cold, hard evidence of her betrayal. My world, once secure and predictable, had shattered into a million pieces, each reflecting the lie my life had become. The lock clicked into place with a finality that echoed the shattering of my trust. I'd just kicked Julia out, the woman I pledged my life to, because she decided ours wasn't enough. Standing in the doorway, watching her plead through tears, I felt a mix of anger and heartbreak. Please, Mike, we can fix this, she sobbed, but her betrayal was a chasm too wide to bridge. There's nothing left to fix, Julia, I said, closing the door on us, on everything we'd built. Driven by a fury I couldn't quench. I did something I never thought I'd do. I sent the CCTV footage to Thomas's wife. If my world was going to fall apart, I wasn't going down alone. The fallout was immediate and explosive. Thomas confronted me the next day, his face a mask of rage. "You've ruined my life," he bellowed, shoving me hard against my car in the company parking lot. My coworkers' eyes were on us, a mixture of shock and curiosity painting their faces. It didn't take long for fists to fly, for the accumulated pain and betrayal to manifest into physical blows. We were a tangle of rage and desperation, fighting for all we'd lost, until the wail of police sirens broke through the haze. Handcuffed and humiliated, we were carted off for public disturbance, a new low in my rapidly unraveling life. The news spread like wildfire, a juicy scandal for our small community to feast on. "Did you hear about Mike and Julia?" became the whisper on everyone's lips, a stain on our reputations we'd never wash off. Julia, caught in the crossfire of our private war, lost her job at the library. The place she loved, her refuge from the chaos of our failing marriage, gone because of the scandal. Sitting in that cold, sterile police station, it hit me, my quest for revenge hadn't just hurt Julia and Thomas, it had obliterated the remnants of the life I once knew. The cost of my anger was higher than I'd ever imagined, leaving me to wonder if any of it was worth it. The world seemed to shrink around me, my life condensing into a single, burning focus. Revenge. It consumed me, gnawing at the edges of my sanity, pushing away the friends who tried to pull me back from the brink. "Mike, this isn't you," they'd say, but they didn't understand. The betrayal wasn't theirs to forgive. Julia, meanwhile, found refuge with a friend willing to overlook her transgressions. I knew because I couldn't help myself. I tracked her, watched her, desperate for some sign of remorse, some indication that she felt even a fraction of the pain she'd inflicted on me. But life, it seemed, moved on for her. She even landed a job at a bookstore, a fresh start I begrudgingly acknowledged she was entitled to. Work became an afterthought, my performance slipping through my fingers like sand. The warning from my boss jolted me, a stark reminder of the real-world consequences of my vendetta. "Shape up, Mike, or you're out." His words echoed in my head, a lifeline I wasn't sure I wanted to grasp. In the midst of my self-imposed exile, a mutual friend, playing the peacemaker, suggested counseling. "It could help you both," she urged, her optimism a stark contrast to my bitterness. But the thought of sitting across from Julia, discussing our feelings as if they could mend what was broken, was unbearable. I refused. Then came the letter, Julia's handwriting unmistakable on the envelope. I didn't need to open it to know its contents: apologies, pleas for understanding, maybe even the offer of friendship. It didn't matter, into the fire it went, the flames consuming her words, her apologies turning to ash. When word reached me that Julia was seeing someone new, it was as if the final piece of my resolve snapped. The injustice of it, her ability to simply move on and find happiness while I was stuck in this endless loop of anger and retribution, was maddening. My friends' warnings, my boss's threats, even Julia's attempts at reconciliation, all faded into the background, overshadowed by a resurgence of bitterness and a renewed desire for revenge. The world I'd known, the life I'd built, was unrecognizable now, transformed by a cascade of choices driven by betrayal and a quest for vengeance that promised no satisfaction, no matter the outcome. I never thought I'd be the guy sculpting around in the dead of night, fueled by a toxic mix of rage and despair. Yet, there I was, key in hand, etching my hurt into the paint of Julia's car. It was a moment of madness, a tangible mark of my pain, but as the first light of dawn caught the gleam of the scratched metal, reality crashed down on me. The act, meant to deliver a final blow to Julia, was instead captured in high definition by the watchful eye of a CCTV camera perched innocently above. The police didn't knock, they banged, a relentless sound that matched the pounding in my head. Handcuffed and hauled away, I realized this was more than just a rock bottom, it was a new, unimaginable low. The job that I'd clung to, the last vestige of my previous life, vanished with my arrest, leaving me adrift in a sea of my own making. Meanwhile, Julia found solace in the arms of another, her happiness blossoming even as mine withered. The irony wasn't lost on me. In my quest to make her feel a fraction of my pain, she had moved on, leaving me to wallow in the consequences of my actions. The news of Julia's decision to leave the city with her partner was a cold splash of reality. My actions hadn't anchored her to me, they had severed the last ties that bound us. In a last-ditch effort to salvage a shred of dignity, I went to her, a man broken by his own doing. "Julia, please, I'm I'm sorry, I stammered, standing at her doorstep, a place I once called home. But the door that opened wasn't the gateway to forgiveness I'd hoped for. Julia, stronger and more resolved than I'd ever seen her, didn't hesitate. Mike, it's too late. I've moved on. You should, too. Watching her drive away the next morning, the finality of our severed ties hit me with the force of a freight train. The love of my life, the woman I vowed to protect, was gone, leaving me with nothing but the ruins of the life I'd destroyed. The road to redemption seemed insurmountable, a path marred by the wreckage of my own making. As her car disappeared into the distance, a sobering thought settled in my heart. The cost of my actions was far greater than I ever imagined, a price paid not in moments of anger, but in the endless stretch of what remained of my life. The night I found myself alone, staring at the empty walls of what used to be our bedroom, the weight of my actions finally sank in. It was in that hollow silence, with the echo of my mistakes for company, that I realized something had to change. I was at rock bottom, jobless, friendless, and now, without the woman I once vowed to spend my life with. The path to self-destruction I'd walked down on had led me here, and it was time to find my way back. I started therapy the following week, a decision that felt like admitting defeat but ended up being my first step towards redemption. Sitting in that small, too-bright room across from a stranger who promised nothing but a safe space to unravel, I began to unpack the anger, the loss, and the myriad of emotions I'd bottled up. It wasn't just Julia's betrayal, I found myself admitting out loud, the words tasting bitter but necessary. I played a part in our downfall, too. Reconnecting with old friends proved harder than I anticipated. The phone calls were awkward, the apologies stumbled and often met with silence. I'd burned bridges, acted out in ways that left deep scars, and while some offered cautious forgiveness, others were not so willing to forget. It was a tough pill to swallow, acknowledging the friendships I'd sacrificed on the altar of my vengeance. In search of an outlet, a way to make sense of the chaos I'd created, I started a blog. Typing out the first post felt like speaking into the void, but as I continued to share my journey, raw and unfiltered, the void began to talk back. Comments trickled in, from people who'd been through their own battles with betrayal, with revenge. There was solace in our shared experiences, a community of strangers finding comfort in each other's stories. News of Julia's engagement reached me through the grapevine of mutual friends, a bittersweet pill that forced me to confront the final remnants of what could have been. She was moving on, finding happiness in a new life far removed from the wreckage of ours. It stung, yes, but beneath that sting was a flicker of something else, hope. Hope that moving forward was possible, not just for her, but for me too. As I continued to write, to reflect, and to heal, my blog morphed into something bigger than my own story. It became a beacon for those navigating their own dark waters, a reminder that redemption was within reach if you were willing to work for it. And as Julia built her future with someone else, I began to construct one for myself, grounded not in revenge or regret, but in understanding, forgiveness, and the promise of new beginnings. The day I walked into the local charity to volunteer, it was like stepping into a different world. A world where my past mistakes and heartaches didn't define me. Here, I was just Mike, a guy trying to make a difference. It felt good, real good. Helping out at the shelter, seeing the direct impact of my actions on others' lives, it gave me a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in a long time. It was during one of these volunteer shifts that I met Anna. She was different from anyone I'd known, her kindness and genuine interest in those around her drawing me in. We started slow, coffee dates that turned into long walks, conversations that delved deeper than I'd gone in years. She knew my story, the blog made sure of that, but she saw beyond it, to the man I was becoming. For the first time in a long while, I allowed myself to entertain the possibility of love again. Then, out of the blue, Thomas reached out. The last person I expected to hear from, yet there he was, on the other end of the line, his voice heavy with his own burdens. Mike, I need advice, he said, a vulnerability in his tone I'd never heard before. We met up, two men linked by a shared history of mistakes and consequences. Our conversation was long and raw, filled with admissions of fault and the desire to change. I shared my journey, the painful process of letting go of anger and moving towards forgiveness. It was cathartic, speaking to someone who understood the depth of the pain caused by betrayal. Thomas left that meeting with a resolve to fix the bridges he'd burned, inspired by the changes he saw in me. It was a reminder of how far I'd come, not just in healing myself but in reaching a place where I could help others on their path to redemption. That encounter led me to start a support group for men grappling with betrayal in the lure of revenge. What began as a handful of guys sitting around a coffee table, sharing their stories, grew into something larger. We became a community, a place where men could come to find understanding, support, and a way forward. The support group's growth was a testament to the need for a space where men could express their vulnerabilities and work through their pain without judgment. It was rewarding, watching the group evolve, seeing firsthand the healing power of shared experiences and mutual support. Through volunteering, finding love, connecting with Thomas, and starting the support group, my life had taken a turn I never anticipated. Each step forward was a step away from the man I used to be, towards a future filled with hope, love, and the promise of new beginnings. The day I realized I was genuinely happy again, it hit me like a burst of sunlight through a long overcast sky. There I was, laughing and planning a future with Anna, a woman who walked into my life when I was convinced I'd never find love again. Our relationship wasn't just about the romance, it was built on a foundation of trust, open communication, and a deep understanding of the value of second chances. We'd been through our respective storms, but together, we found our calm. The moment I proposed to Anna, it was nothing like the grand gestures you see in movies. It was intimate, just us, in our little living room that had become a home filled with love and new memories. The simplicity of it all underscored the profoundness of our journey. "Will you marry me?" I asked, my voice steady but my heart racing. Her yes was a whisper, but it echoed like a shout of joy in my heart. Meanwhile, Julia had found her own path to happiness, marrying her partner in a ceremony in her new city. The news reached me not as a sting, but as a soft closure to a chapter-long close. She deserved happiness, just as I had found mine. Reflecting on the past, I realized the journey from the depths of despair to where I stood now was not just about moving on, it was about transforming my pain into something positive. My blog, once a personal outlet for my anguish and regret, had morphed into a lifeline for others grappling with their darkness. Compiling those entries into a book felt like the next step, a way to reach out and offer hope on a larger scale. The book's success took me by surprise. It became a bestseller, resonating with people far beyond my initial circle. Speaking engagements and workshops followed, allowing me to advocate for mental health and the healing power of forgiveness. My story, once a source of personal shame, had become a beacon of hope for others. Then came the day Anna and I welcomed our child into the world, a tangible symbol of new beginnings and the love that had grown between us. Holding our baby for the first time, I felt the last remnants of my old self slip away, replaced by a man who had learned, grown, and was ready to embrace this new chapter. In the quiet hours of the night, with my family asleep, I penned a letter to Julia. Not to send, but to articulate the final piece of forgiveness and let go of any lingering resentment. It was my way of acknowledging our shared past, thanking her for the lessons learned, and officially closing that door to open another fully to my future. As I sealed the letter, placing it in a drawer, a sense of peace enveloped me. I was ready to move forward, not just for myself, but for Anna, our child, and the many lives I hoped to touch with my story. My journey from despair to redemption was complete, but the path to helping others had just begun. With hope, gratitude, and a heart open to all the possibilities the future held, I stepped into the dawn of a new day, ready to write the next chapter. Before I met my wife, I was in a relationship with a girl for 5 years. It ended with her cheating on me with my best friend. And then they are getting together for about 5 years. All my other friends continue to mainly hang out with my ex-girlfriend and ex-best friend. So I felt like trash that everyone threw away. I wasn't in a great place when I met my wife, and I'm sure that contributed to my stay. Even when I could tell that something was off, I cut my friends out for about 10 years. Now I see one of them, but just at social gatherings that involve mutual friends of ours. None of which were from the original group. Not sure about my ex-best friend, but things turned out terrible for my ex. She's very unhappily married with 1 child. My sister just gave me an update on my ex the other week coincidentally. Her husband plays game all day and wouldn't help her. Her mom moved down close to where they live to help out. And my ex is always complaining to her mom that she doesn't help enough. I also think I was afraid of abandonment issues. Therapy is starting to get into this issue. When I was 2, my father was sent to prison for 7 years. And according to my therapist, I became terrified that if I did the wrong thing, people and the society in general would like to banish me. And that pretty much tracked my understanding of myself throughout my life. I first met my current wife 10 years ago. The first year was amazing. She gave birth to our first son. And after that, the dead bedroom started. She was pressuring me to get married to her. And I thought the problem in our relationship is because I don't trust anyone because of my ex cheating on me from my previous relationship. So I proposed to her thinking that it would get better. She was asking me to, and I thought it would help with the dead bedroom. Bad idea. Few months after proposing to her, we were in our living room when I saw a text pop up on her phone. The text was from her ex-boyfriend, asking about her whereabouts. I confronted her about it and threatened to call off the engagement. She showed me their text correspondent and I didn't find anything extra. Just both of them checking on each other occasionally. Although it seems like a lot of texts have been deleted. After she claimed innocence, I had no proof of infidelity. Plus, we share a son together. We almost called off our engagement. I should have walked away then. Except I wouldn't have my son, and he's truly worth everything I went through. Over the next few months, she did things to make amends and prove to me that she loved me. I decided to get married to her. We had a big, expensive, beautiful wedding. Honeymoon in Hawaii. Everything she asked for. Then after the wedding, things went downhill. She started to withdraw intimacy and would always give excuses why she couldn't be intimate with me. We would fight about it all the time. I would tell her it felt like she didn't love me. I was being cheated on, not the first time. So I knew the feeling your partner gives off when they are done with you and yearn for someone else. She would tell me I was too needy and say why was she with me if she didn't love me. I would tell her empty, loveless marriages are common and I didn't want to be in one. But in the end, I would stay. Repeat this for the next few years. We eventually bought a house. I was reluctant, but she was pushing it. I would tell her how the way everything was going made me reluctant to take the next step. Buy a house. Have more kids. She would just insert the thing she was pursuing into her argument. If I don't love you, then why do I want to get a house with you? Trying to get pregnant by you. I never really had an answer except that she was unhappy with herself and afraid to be alone. Our bedroom life had grounded to a halt and we would go weeks without having excess. Then one day, out of the blue, she initiated excess. Something she normally wouldn't do. She was trying to get me to choke her. First time she has ever done this. I thought it was something new. Maybe she was trying to spice up our relationship. So I went along with it. We went from plain vanilla excess to her wanting it rough. Our bedroom life picked back up like before we had our son. Then all of a sudden, it dropped off and she started making excuses again. I thought something was wrong. I noticed that she was texting a lot and was guarding her phone. When she sleeps, her phone will be under her pillow. Realizing that she was hiding something from me, I snatched her phone out of her hand when she was texting and ran over to my friend's house next door. And she ran after me screaming for me to give her phone back to her. I shut the door in my friend's house and videoed all her text messages with my phone. I am glad I have the video, but I regret reading a lot of it. Turns out that she was having a full-blown affair with someone she knew in high school and recently went out of state for a few months. Which was why she started initiating excess with me. I returned with my friend as a witness and told her to leave our house, and she did without incident. The text I read was so graphic that they run across my eyelids all night now when I try to sleep. She was so enthusiastic. I am okay with it being over. It was a terrible marriage, but the way it ended is a walking nightmare. I always felt like a placeholder just waiting for some guy that's actually lit the fire to just come and casually take her. And that's exactly what happened. In the meantime, I was building a life for her. But she just used what I built like a lather for herself. Super cold. But looking back, all the signs were there. I will be able to apply this lesson to my next relationship, which is good. But I will never marry again. Don't want any more children than what I currently have. So she definitely took all that away from me forever. When I think of my son and how terrible it all was, I feel strong. But when I'm alone, especially at night, my mind keeps imagining the two of them together. As much as I try to push it out, I can't seem to. During the week when she tried to get me to choke her in bed, then finding evidence of a full-blown affair on her phone, December 1st, that whole choking thing was more like beginning of September. And yes, it was a huge red flag that I missed. 5 months later, so I know that he dominates her. And that really gives my imagination ammunition to use on myself. I have to preface this with, I would never hurt myself. But at night, I want to die. I know in the end, all three of us would be better off from the divorce. But it's really hard right now. It all happened at the beginning of December. I immediately told her to leave when I found everything. Update. It is almost impossible to push away, especially at night all alone. The first time so far that those thoughts entered my mind and I was truly able to say and feel like who gives AF in a healthy way, was the day I posted my story in the Dead Bedroom sub. That was definitely the motivation behind me stumbling into this sub and posting. I have been struggling again over the past few days. A lot of it has to do with the settlement. I am working on getting her to sign it and agree. So I am placating to her. This includes FaceTime calls that are supposed to be about the parents, not with her having access to him, where we basically act like family again. I have put in boundaries for the FaceTime calls now. My sister administered the phone when my son is with me. But the ones that are the other way around still end up like I described. It takes a lot out of me to put up with that act and then feel zero self-respect when it is done. She could take me to the cleaners if she wants, but has told me she had no intention of it and will sign off on all the marital assets that are mine. I feel stuck until she sings. I have hired a lawyer and we have started the process of drawing up the settlement. Update, yeah, I will be shooting for no contact with my ex. She is continuing to F with me and can't be trusted to even be appropriate and respectful during the FaceTime calls we are making once a night so we can each have contact with him every night. The other night she called and when I saw the screen, she was all done with makeup and I heard a deep voice at her new apartment. I agreed, not bad-mouthing her. Just going for no contact. Paternity test, check. STD test, check. My lawyer has drawn the settlement. My ex is reviewing it now. She said she would be finished reviewing by Monday, but surprise, she's dragging it out. We are still amicable on the surface, but we specialize in that all through our relationship. As soon as she signs it, I will explain to her I want zero contact outside our co-parenting app one will use to communicate schedule and any other info that should be known. Sickness, medical anything, bathroom frequency, last time he had Miralax or any meds we need both to be aware of, etc. I started therapy and joined a gym. The gym is going great. Therapy is off a bumpy start. The first therapist I went to, I didn't like. The second is way too expensive, but I did like. The second also has appointments like once a month, so I am going to keep going, but also look for another soon. My relationship with my son has transformed in a very positive way. I know later on I will have to return to being more of an authoritarian, but right now he's 3 and he and I are best buddies. I put so much more effort in everything. Feeling pretty hopeful. Definitely having a very dark moment every single day still. My ex got drunk one night and tried texting me. I didn't even acknowledge the text. I have my sister helping me to handle all communication with my ex for now. So her desperate text just sat at the bottom of our text log, front and center, for a couple of weeks. I did text her myself regarding the separation agreement. So now it's no longer just sitting there. It was a picture of her crying, and she texted me the word baby after it. It effed me a little, but now it feels good that I know she had at least an effing moment of regret because she had never expressed any regret or apologized to me. I showed my friends her text and it confused a lot of them. Sitting in bed one night, I had a revelation about the picture she sent. That was not the first picture she took of herself crying that night. She's obsessed with pictures on Instagram and on Facebook and how everything looks instead of the actual substance of anything. The reason I put crying in quotes and it was so confusing to everyone is that probably the first picture she took was her actually crying. I am sure she decided that one was not okay to send. So she probably sent like the 20th attempt. Which at that point she's just posing sad but trying to look alluring. She's a sick person just broken inside. Things are looking pretty good right now, but that could change if she tries to change too much in the separation agreement. Fingers crossed. It's hard to believe I live in a place where she can go and pull this SHT like having an affair, and yet she's the one that gets to decide how she can take me to the cleaners. I highly doubt I will ever allow myself to get married unless I relocate to Saudi Arabia. Their punishment for adultery is pretty severe. Winking face. I already threw her out as soon as I found everything. She agreed to leave and walk away from all the marital assets. We are sharing 50-50 custody, and I have hired a lawyer who's working on drawing up the settlement. I'm about to call the lawyer to check in now. Here we get the settlement signed. I intend to make sure her entire family knows what she had done. Update. We just finished signing the last of the divorce paperwork. I kept all the assets that were mine, bought her out of the house, and we are sharing 50-50 custody of my son. I am far more engaged with my son every moment I am with him, and with almost every aspect of my life in general. Been keeping my promise to myself to hit the gym. I have abs again. Visible abs. And after 2 therapists that didn't fit, I found one that is helping me navigate the mess that is life. My sister and mom moved in to help me keep my house for my son. That presents some challenges, honestly. But with the help from therapy, navigating those challenges is not as bad at all. They both love me and my son. So I just need to work on the way I approach any problems we have as a household. And problems become way more feasible and not so extreme. My business is really starting to thrive this year. So possibly in a few years, they can figure out more permanent living arrangements. I am currently sleeping on a Mophie bed in my living room. I give them the 2 of the 3 bedrooms, and my son has the 3rd. It's been super helpful and supportive to have my family with me through the hardest thing I have ever went through. I am eternally grateful to them. I dated a girl for a few weeks, but after it became obvious, she was going to keep pushing for monogamous relationship. When I feel like me being ready for that is years away. I broke it off with her. She was really sweet about it, which made me feel even worse at first. But it was important for me to look out for myself and my son and not just bend over someone else's needs. It was a good first step for me to grow and eventually finding another relationship, almost like a behavioral exercise. I am scared to trust anyone, but she was sweet. And after I started to get anxious about the way things were going, I spent about another week talking to her and then broke it off based on what I thought was best for me. So it feels like progress. Here is the text message I received from her. I know I kept my text very short with no emotion last night, thinking that was good enough for my half, but it isn't. I wish I could say I was surprised, but unfortunately I am not. A woman intuition is never wrong. I respect you for not wanting to drag me along if you're not really ready for it. As much as I do respect that, I gotta say it's definitely frustrating. I think after this separation and divorce process, you didn't expect to hit it off with someone so soon. That text you sent I know has nothing to do with me. That's you battling with your own things, and I get it. But you found someone good that I don't think you were expecting so soon. Someone to support and make you feel good about yourself again. I don't think you're scared to get hurt and scared to trust again. I think we both feel pretty similar about each other. And that scares you, so you're cutting it off. By all means, you do not have to respond if you don't want to, but I just had to express that. I'm here and you don't need to run. Figure your things out, and if you want to try again and start afresh with me, that offer is always on the table for you. You were a gentleman till the very end, and I will never forget that. You still are an amazing man, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. That was the text she sent me the day after I told her I didn't think we should see each other anymore. She's nice, but just wanted immediate attachment. I explicitly told her I didn't want that at this point in my life, but it seemed like she saw that as a challenge or obstacle to overcome rather than a genuine constraint. Now that my ex signed off on everything I needed her to, I no longer feel the need to bend to any of her wishes either, and have felt very comfortable putting my foot down when it comes to requests she has about our son or otherwise. I feel great for the most part, most happier, and keep getting compliments about how I look, more fit and just happy in general. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Please hit the thumbs up so YouTube can promote my videos. Thank you and have a... The moment I heard the garage door close well past midnight, I knew something was off. Work's been crazy, she said, her words a rehearsed melody. I wanted to believe her, to trust that the mounting hours at the office were just the ebb and flow of project demands. But the seed of doubt, once planted, is a relentless sprout. Dinner was cold, again, I mentioned, keeping my tone neutral, masking the cocktail of frustration and concern brewing inside. Sorry, this new project with Tom is consuming all my time, she sighed, collapsing into the chair opposite me, avoiding eye contact. Tom, her new project partner, was becoming a frequent character in our nightly exchanges, his presence in our conversations overshadowing his physical absence. In an attempt to bridge the widening gap between us, I proposed, how about we take a weekend trip? Just us, no work, no Tom. The idea hung in the air, a frail attempt at rekindling what was being smothered by unspoken tensions. I can't, she replied too quickly, the project deadline is looming. Maybe after. The pattern of late nights became punctuated by her phone lighting up with messages that elicited secretive smiles. Just Tom being silly about the project, she'd laugh off my raised eyebrows. But the unease settled in like an unwelcome guest. Then came the day I found the receipt, a romantic dinner for two, not on any of our recent date nights. My heart sank. It was a project celebration, she explained, her words smooth, practiced. But the celebration didn't include me, and her assurances did little to mend the cracks forming in my trust. Each excuse, each dismissal, felt like a brick in a wall she was building between us. A wall I couldn't see over, couldn't break through. The foundation of our life together, once solid, now felt like shifting sand beneath my feet. It was a Thursday, just shy of 6 p.m., when I decided to surprise Marla at work with dinner from that Thai place she loves. My gut churned with a mix of anticipation and anxiety as I navigated the familiar corridors of her office building, a steaming bag of pad thai and spring rolls in hand. I hadn't seen her workspace in months. Marla's project with the new guy, Jeff, had her burning the midnight oil more often than not. I missed her, missed us. Reaching her office, I knocked, waiting for that bright smile that used to light up my world. Instead, I found her desk, stark and impersonal, missing the collage of our life together that once claimed space beside her monitor. The framed photo from our last vacation, the silly caricature from the state fair, even the little succulent I'd given her for Valentine's Day, all gone. My heart sank. Had I missed a memo on office decor, or was this a message meant only for me? Before I could process further, Marla looked up, her expression a mix of surprise and, was that annoyance? What are you doing here? She asked, not unkindly, but with a distance that felt like miles. I thought we could have dinner together, you know, like old times, I managed, feeling suddenly foolish with my bag of takeout. She glanced at her watch, then back at me, her eyes softening slightly. I can't, babe, deadline's breathing down my neck. Jeff and I have to work this weekend to catch up. Her words, meant to explain, felt more like a chasm widening between us. I tried not to let my disappointment show. We haven't really talked in weeks, Marla. Feels like I'm sleeping next to a stranger. Are we okay? She sighed, a tired, drawn-out breath that seemed to carry more weight than the air it displaced. I'm just stressed, that's all. We're fine. I'm fine. This project is just a lot. I nodded, though her words did little to ease the growing pit in my stomach. The ride home was a blur of streetlights and unanswered questions, the Thai food growing cold beside me. The days that followed were a testament to our crumbling reality. Our anniversary came and went without a whisper from Marla. When I brought it up, she blinked in genuine surprise before mumbling something about losing track of days because of work exhaustion. But the real gut punch came when I stumbled upon her phone, lighting up with a smirk. Marla laughed it off when I confronted her, insisting it was an inside joke about a client. I wanted to believe her, really, I did. But the laughter in her voice didn't reach her eyes, and those eyes, once so warm and open, were now shuttered and cool. Our conversations dwindled to nothing more than necessary exchanges, the warmth we once shared reduced to cold, functional sentences. Each word felt like a brick, building a wall between us that I couldn't scale, no matter how hard I tried. I missed my wife, the woman I married, but she was slipping through my fingers, and I was powerless to stop it. The night was cooler than usual, a relief from the sweltering summer days we'd been having. But the chill in the air was nothing compared to the ice forming in my gut as I watched her laugh, her head thrown back in a way that used to be reserved for me. There she was, my wife, with him. They were just entering the lobby of a hotel that screamed guilty pleasures and secret rendezvous. The kind of place we used to sneak off to when life seemed like an adventure waiting to be had, not the silent battleground it had become. I waited until the following morning, the images from last night burning behind my eyes, refusing to be blinked away. The confrontation was inevitable, like a storm that had been brewing on the horizon for months. I saw you last night, I began, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. Her reaction was immediate and defensive. Saw me where? What? Do you have me followed now? The accusation stung, more so because of the disbelief that clouded her features. At the hotel, with him, I pushed on, needing her to understand the depth of betrayal. Her laugh was sharp, cutting. You're being ridiculous, why would you even think? She didn't finish, but the implication hung heavily between us. The days that followed were a blur of denial and confrontation. I found a pregnancy test hidden beneath the bathroom trash, an ominous sign of secrets kept and lies told. It's not what you think, she insisted, a rehearsed line that did nothing to soothe the growing chasm between us. It's for a friend, she claimed, but the trust that should have made me believe her was already shattered, ground into dust by doubt and suspicion. Our home, once filled with laughter and warmth, had become a battleground for silent wars and whispered betrayals. The affection she once had for me had cooled into something unrecognizable, leaving behind a shell of the love we used to share. Arguments became our new normal, erupting over trivial things that neither of us would remember the next day. Then, one evening, I overheard her. I miss you, she whispered into the phone, her voice a tender caress meant for someone else. My heart fractured a little more with each word, the undeniable evidence of her affection for him laying waste to any denial she had left. His name became a constant in our conversations, her praise for him a knife twisting with every mention. He's just been so helpful with the project, she'd say, a smile in her voice that hadn't been there when speaking to me in months. An anonymous tip came through, a cowardly text suggesting what I already knew but refused to face. Your wife's affair isn't just rumors, it read, a faceless accuser in a sea of denials. I wanted to dismiss it, to believe in the woman I married, but the foundation of our marriage had crumbled beyond recognition. Then, out of the blue, she suggested we take a break. Maybe some time apart would do us good, she said, her eyes avoiding mine. The suggestion hung between us, a final admission of the distance that had grown too vast to bridge. Each day, the woman I shared my life with became more of a stranger, her heart and affections promised to another. The realization was a slow poison, eroding the remnants of trust and love I clung to. In the end, it wasn't just about discovering the affair. It was about witnessing the slow, painful death of a marriage I thought was built to last. The moment I hung up the phone with my buddy, a sense of foreboding settled in, heavy like a blanket of fog. He had said, "Man, just keep your eyes open. You need more than a gut feeling before you confront her." Easy for him to say. Not living in a house where every laugh from her phone felt like a punch to the gut. It didn't take long for things to escalate. She started coming home late, her explanations vague and her patience thin whenever I asked where she'd been. Just out with friends, she'd say, her voice laced with annoyance as if my concern was the real inconvenience. Then I stumbled upon it, a hidden social media account, a secret window into a life I was no longer a part of. There she was, in photo after photo, cozying up to him, her coworker, with captions that didn't leave much to the imagination. My heart didn't just sink, it plummeted. Confrontation was inevitable. What is this? I demanded, holding up my phone to her face, her secret life displayed in bright pixels. But she was unyielding, anger flaring in her eyes. You're paranoid, she shot back, turning the blame around on me as if I was the one tearing us apart. It wasn't long before I found more, hotel bookings and plane tickets for two. When confronted, she spun a tale of surprises and future plans, but refused to let me see any more details. You just have to trust me, she insisted, a plea that felt more like a slap, considering the circumstances. Trust, however, was a ship that had already sailed and sunk. Driven by a desperation I couldn't name, I did something I never thought I'd do. I took one of her prenatal visit documents and sent it off for a paternity test. The results came back like a verdict in a trial I didn't remember signing up for, non-paternity. The child she was carrying wasn't mine. each discovery, each lie, was a thread unraveling the life we had built together. Yet, with every thread pulled, I felt not just the unraveling of our marriage but the disintegration of the man I thought I was, trustful, loving, but now, just a spectator in the demolition of his own happiness. The numbers didn't add up. Staring at the joint account statement, my stomach churned. Her spending had spiraled out of control, and when I'd ask, her explanations were as thin as the paper in my hands. Just some things for the house, she'd say, avoiding eye contact, her voice a little too casual. I started to feel the distance not just in our home, but among our friends too. It was subtle at first, a cancelled dinner here, an unreturned call there. Then, the avoidance became unmistakable. Our once close-knit group seemed to dissolve overnight, leaving me stranded on an island of whispers and sideways glances. "Everything okay with you guys?" They'd ask, their eyes darting away too quickly. Something was amiss, and it was clear they knew more than they let on. The betrayal hit a new low the day she slipped up, calling me by his name. "Can you pass the salt, David?" There was no David in our lives, except for him, her coworker. The silence that followed was deafening, a gaping void where our relationship used to be. Her apology was mumbled, insincere, a band-aid over a wound too deep to heal. I needed the truth, no matter how much it would hurt. So, I planned a fake business trip, a ruse to catch her in the act. The pain of booking that hotel room just a few blocks from our home, knowing I'd use it as a stakeout to watch my own wife, was indescribable. And there it was, the undeniable proof I'd dreaded but expected. From the shadows of my rented anonymity, I watched them together, laughing, touching, a display of affection so public, so carefree, it was as if our vows meant nothing. The image of them together seared into my memory, a brand marking the end of what we had. I confronted her the moment I returned, the evidence laid bare. Her confession came amidst a storm of tears and blame. "Yes, there's someone else, but you were never there for me emotionally," she cried, as if her betrayal was somehow my doing. Her words were daggers, each one aimed with precision at my heart, turning the blame on me, making her infidelity seem like a desperate act of someone seeking solace. That night, the truth of our crumbling marriage lay exposed, raw and bleeding. Her affair, now out in the open, shifted something fundamental between us. What hurt wasn't just the infidelity, but the realization that our love, once unbreakable, had been reduced to ashes, with her blaming me for the fire. The night air felt heavy, laden with the kind of silence that precedes a storm. We sat across from each other, two strangers tethered by years of shared history, now unraveling. Her next words shattered the silence like glass. "I'm pregnant," she said, her voice a whisper of the woman I used to know. The weight of her admission sank deep, anchoring itself to my very soul. "It was a mistake," she added, her eyes pleading for understanding I wasn't sure I had left to give. The revelation sent ripples through the fragile remains of our marriage. The coworker, the man who'd become an unwanted cornerstone of our lives, suddenly vanished into thin air, transferring to another city as if distance could erase his part in this tragedy. His denial of paternity was the final betrayal, leaving her alone in the mess we both found ourselves drowning in. In the wake of the chaos, she reached out, her proposal hanging between us like a lifeline she hoped I'd grasp. "Let's raise the child together," she suggested, a desperate bid for reconciliation. But the chasm her deceit had carved was too wide, too deep to cross. My refusal to entertain the thought marked the beginning of the end. Divorce proceedings were initiated, a formal acknowledgement of the irreparable fracture between us. Her reaction was swift, a transformation fueled by fear and desperation. She became hostile, her words sharp and merciless, threatening financial ruin if I pursued the divorce. The battle lines were drawn not just in court, but in the court of public opinion among our friends and family. Allegiances shifted, sides were taken, and the personal became painfully public. The scandal of her relationship with the coworker, now amplified by the pregnancy and our crumbling marriage, played out for all to see. The facade they had built crumbled, leaving behind a trail of destruction that spared no one, least of all her. Through it all, the realization that the love I once harbored had been replaced by a profound sense of betrayal and deception was the hardest pill to swallow. The process, marked by legal battles and public scrutiny, was a crucible, burning away any remnants of what we once had. In the end, the divorce wasn't just the dissolution of our marriage but a liberation from a web of lies too tangled to salvage. The relentless buzz of the alarm clock pierced through the early morning silence, a cruel reminder of the day ahead. Lying in bed, the weight of the world felt heavy on my chest, a physical manifestation of the stress that had become my constant companion. My health had taken a nosedive, a casualty of the war that my life had become. Each day was a battle, not just in the courtroom, but within myself, fighting against the tide of emotions that threatened to consume me. Work became an impossible task. The focus and dedication that had once defined my career now eluded me, lost in a fog of anxiety and sleepless nights. My colleagues' concerned glances were a silent testament to my unraveling state, a stark contrast to the man I once was. In court, she wielded my deteriorating health and work performance like a weapon, a sharp blade aimed directly at my vulnerabilities. Her words painted me as unreliable, unworthy of the assets and rights we once shared. The emotional distress clouding my judgment, I made decisions that would haunt me, concessions that cost me dearly. The coworker, once a central figure in our tumultuous narrative, vanished from her life as swiftly as he had entered. His departure left her to navigate the storm of pregnancy and public scrutiny alone, a solitary figure in the aftermath of our shared destruction. In a twist that would have once seemed unimaginable, she came back to me, her pleas for reconciliation echoing in the empty space between us. "I've changed," she claimed, her eyes searching mine for a flicker of the love that had once bound us together. But the well had run dry, and I turned her away, the finality of our end cemented in the silence that followed. The fallout of our split rippled through the family, straining the bonds with my children, who struggled to find their footing in the shifting sands of our reality. Their pain was a sharp reminder of the collateral damage, innocent bystanders in a war they never asked to be part of. She faced a loneliness that mirrored my own, her social circles dwindling as friends chose sides, leaving her isolated in the wake of our public demise. Financial struggles followed, a bitter harvest of the seeds sown in our battles against each other. And so, I stood alone, the dust of our shattered lives settling around me. The victory in divorce felt hollow, a Pyrrhic win that cost me more than I was willing to pay. Surrounded by the remnants of the life we built, the loneliness was a tangible thing, a constant reminder of the price of revenge. In the quiet moments, the truth whispered to me, a bitter pill swallowed in the dark. My quest for justice had led me here, to a place of regret and solitude. The realization of my downfall was a cold comfort, the understanding that in seeking to right the wrongs, I had lost not just my wife and the life we shared, but a part of myself that I would never